Hello, everyone, and welcome to Willow Talk. Adam Peacock here. Elisa Healy is not here. Brad Haddon is not here. So the Magenta Twins are elsewhere. So to balance it out from a Sydney perspective, we thought we'd go lime green today. And Australia and New South Wales fast bowler, Sydney Thunder general manager, Channel 7 expert. I don't know what else to call you. You've probably got other titles as well. Trent Copeland, how are you, mate?
Absolute hack needs to go in there as well. Yeah, it's about time we got the Sixers lot out of here and got a bit of lime green in. So, yeah, good to be here.
Fair enough. I was going to add a bit. Sammy said blend into it a bit, but no, I'm going to do it off the top, actually. I was actually in your intro there going to say, and second best athlete in his own household as well. So
very accurate. Much like Starkey in his. Yes, my wife played 15, 16 years of elite netball for Australia, Kim. So I'm very much second, maybe even third or fourth. Now I've got two kids. They're already hustling around. My daughter's a sprinter in the works.
Oh, okay, sprinter. So no ball sports at the moment, no cricket bat.
They're
no
3 and 2.
Netball.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll get there.
Sawn off golf clubs.
They'll be in the backyard, yeah. We're going those high net worth sports.
Mate, there's a bit to get through with you today. We've got some news to get through. I want to talk about your career as well, because you had some great moments in there chucked in and some great stories, no doubt. A bit about commentary and a bit about being a GM, because I think that's the one you want to expand on the most, because you froth over that stuff, don't you?
I do, yeah. I'm a big fan of American sports, so NBA. I'm a long-suffering Timberwolves fan, but just love, mind you, last year was pretty cool to watch them go all the way towards finals. But just asset management, trading depressed assets, trading at the top of value, the money that's on offer in American sports, and just the coverage. But also, we're in podcast mode right now. The authenticity of the athletes is why I've engaged with it so often. Is there's real talk all times. There is no cliched answers. There is no, I worry about how that might look, the optics. It's not. This is how it is. This is how we speak, and that's the sort of stuff I love.
Well, you set yourself a standard right there for the next 45 minutes or so, mate. So, I'll get the chance to just basically say stop if you have anywhere near a fence sit, okay?
Okay.
All the way through this one.
No worries.
Now, before we get into it, get around us on Apple and Spotify by giving us a rating or leaving a review. We're on 142 reviews on Apple and 480 on Spotify, closing in on Brian Lara in county cricket all those years ago. Let's get those numbers up to 150 and 500 if you could help us out. Tell your friends. Also, following on from last week, send in your cricket club caps for us to wear on the show. Hads is back in a few weeks and he'll be stoked to put on your club's hat on. Send them through to producer Sam. All the details about how to do that are in the episode notes. Your first ever club hat from Bathurst, what was the club?
Yeah, it was actually, funnily enough, called Rugby Union Cricket Club.
Rugby Union Cricket Club. Colours? Always ask these?
Yeah, yellow and blue.
Okay.
So I reckon I still got it.
I'll send it in the ads. He'll chuck it on for you. Absolutely. Now, before we get into your playing career, firstly, the news of this week. You've announced as Thunder GM, you've nailed down David Warner to, well, I'd call it a long-term contract at the stage he's at of his career.
Yeah.
And Nick Maddinson as well. So putting those two pieces in play, how did it come about? And David Warner is a marquee signing.
Yeah, as far as assets go in the Big Bash this year, there is none bigger than David Warner, because the first time in his career, since he started all those days ago where he was smacking around Dale Steyn at the MCG on international debut, he's never been able to play a full tournament in the Big Bash. Now he can. So as far as priorities go, getting Davey locked away, where he's played all of his Big Bash cricket was really one of the first priorities and one of the biggest priorities when I sat in the chair as GM of the Thunder. So stoked that he's in full tournament start to finish, which is also a contentious issue at the moment on players jetting around the world.
So it doesn't cross over with that Dubai Abu Dhabi tournament?
It does, but Davey's here, for the full tournament here, and then the other tournaments will come into play. So, but he's, a decorated international superstar that's just hung him up as such. So he's able to now get on the circuit. I believe at the moment he might even be in the Cayman Islands. He's just, jet setting around the world. He's been in Canada and lots of other cricket for him to play. But not just that, he also really spoke about giving back to the community. He wants to lean into fan days and things like that, but also really wants to set the standard for his daughters, set a great example on how to play the game that they love too, as well as Candace. So, yeah, stoked with that. And then Maddo, for me, the way I've looked at this is I want our list to be built that upside-wise, if everything clicks, no one can beat us. On our best day, no one can beat us no matter who we're playing against. And Nick Maddinson falls right into that category. His best that we've seen in Shield cricket, he's played for Australia, and even wind back to the days where he played for the Sixers. His best is electric. So, yeah, along with the Wes Agar trade, I thought he was potentially, we talked before in terms of depressed assets to the market. In my view, he's an elite cricketer. And when he's coming into our environment, fresh setup, I think we can get the best out of him.
Just on Davey, captain. Is he allowed to be captain?
Yeah, that's an issue at the moment.
Okay. So those discussions are ongoing. And
yeah, that's the sort of stuff that I'd like to look at just for the best result. But we also have, we signed Sam Billings, who's a captain around the world. He just won the 100 with the Oval Invincibles. He's in for 3 years. So typically, and that's with that multi-year overseas pre-draft signing that we're now allowed to do. Typically, when you go into the draft, you've got an overseas group of players for 1 year. Bilbo being here 3 years means we can really start to set a culture around these people. So whoever it is, Greenie captain last year, Jason Sanger's done it in the past. Nick Maddinson's captain BBL clubs, Davey, Bilbo. There's guys there that have come in, and we made a distinct decision here to surround our young group with leadership, not just good players, but good people, set the culture off the field, and in those big decision moments in a game, Tanvir Sanger, Ollie Davies, and those type of players, left, right, whichever way they look, they've got players around them that can give them that advice in the moment.
Yeah. And even if Davey isn't the captain, he's going to have his say anyway.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right.
He's not going to be quiet about where he thinks the field should be or whatever. So a bit later on, we'll dive into life as a GM. What are the things behind the scenes that you need to do? Because, this is the time of year. We're in the middle of the year, end of winter. It's like, cricket's miles away. But this is where you, in particular, are betting down the success that you might have when the summer months come around. But firstly, speaking of the early summer months, you're out in Bathurst as a young whippersnapper. I don't know how tall you got, how quickly you got, but you like M. Stark, like a really tall wicketkeeper early on. Or were you a short ass and you didn't grow until a bit later on?
I was short until about year 6, and then I shot up, got the stretch marks, and I was, having tough times. But my wicket-keeping, I did bowl a little bit in junior cricket, but wicket-keeping was my avenue to playing senior cricket straight away.
Yep.
So I was playing underage representative cricket in the country, and then in the afternoons I'd go and play with my stepdad and the seniors in Bathurst. So that was really the entry point, and it just sort of flowed on from there. I was really just a batter, and I could catch okay. And same as Starkey, was still now muck around in the warm-ups. I've just broken way too many fingers over the years. So ended up I gave away the keeping gloves when I was 21. When I'd moved down to Sydney.
Not till you're 21.
Yeah, to play grade cricket with St George. So I started 3rd grade opening the batting and wicket keeping when I first moved to Sydney.
And they attracted you as that role?
Yep. And I was coming down to Sydney to play hockey, which I played probably at a higher level in cricket at that point.
Yeah.
And to go to uni. So I had played with the Dean boys that had moved down from Bathurst. They were already at the club. And a few others. So, really, I was a keeper. But in those days, I had Nathan Pillen in 1st grade, Kevin Pillay in 2nd grade. Hads, who's not here today, only reason I'd get into 2nd grade is if Hads was somewhere. Yeah. So Pillow went up to be New South Wales keeper.
Right.
It's not the days where if I was smacking them with the bat that I'd get promoted. Yeah. It was basically wedding or selection.
Which happens a fair bit throughout the October-November month. A lot of weddings on there. It's a beautiful time of year to get married. But so, in a way, you never had designs of a professional life in cricket because it sounds like hockey was the thing that maybe was going to get you to see the world if you got great at that.
Yeah, and hockey I was playing centre half positionally or inside forward, but I was playing against guys like Jamie Dwyer in Sydney who was, killing it on the international stage. I figured out pretty quickly that was not for me. And cricket, I mean, I was coaching for a living, and I think subconsciously teaching myself how to bowl over those years, teaching kids how to do in-swingers, out-swingers, things like that. So the choice to give away the gloves was really about progression in the grades of batting. Just gave it away. I'd broken a heap of fingers, as I said, but the year after, I just wanted to have a crack at 6 spots in the second grade team with the bat. And just what came with that was at training, try and knock a few blokes over with the ball, particularly in the dark when it got around 6:30 p.m. And it was from that moment on about changing people's mindsets. Even up until I was playing first class cricket, people were like, this guy's a keeper. Yeah, he's not a bowler. And then the pace came into it. I had one leg up distinctly over most keepers who want to bowl, and that was height. Yeah, I'm not sure Midge is being able to turn into a fast bowler on the international scene. She might think otherwise. But...
or the other bloke as well.
That's true.
That's usually in here, who reckons all he can bowl is a flipper. That's the only thing he's got in his locker. I'm not sure about Midge, but you end up like it's an amazing way of coming to the point where you think, oh well, if I'm going to progress, I'll be a bowler. Progress to the point where you played over 100 first-class matches for New South Wales. So it ended up being the right call. But you made your Shield debut in January 2010. Tell us about your first ball in Shield cricket.
Yeah, so, I mean, just to wind back a couple of days, I was coaching, as I said. I wasn't contracted. So, didn't follow the rookie contracted player or in the squad immersed in this environment of state cricket. I was a grade cricketer. We were winning competitions in grade, but I played the odd second 11 match. On a Wednesday, I got a phone call from the chairman of selectors saying, while I was coaching, saying, you got to come to SCG tomorrow to do training, pick up your gear, and you're going to debut at the SCG against Queensland on Friday. Like 2 days' notice.
Who were you coaching?
Oh, just a couple of kids that I had a regular sort of 3 to 7 p.m. slot. I went back in. I was tearing up. I'd called my wife or at that point, my girlfriend Kim. And called my family and said, I can't even believe this is happening.
So it wasn't on your radar, really?
No, not at all. At that point, you're just oblivious to it all. You almost think that'll never happen to me. Because at the time, we had Brett Lee, Stuart Clark, Nathan Bracken, Mark Cameron, several others.
A young bloke called Pat Cummins coming through as well, wasn't it?
Stark, Hazelwood, all those blokes. So I just never thought they would come. So, and then we get into the game. One of the biggest things that comes out of you in those moments is the fear factor or the imposter syndrome. You're sitting in the SCG change rooms, calling it your home venue, and get presented with the baggy blue.
Who gave you that?
Brian Booth, also from Bathurst, recently passed, actually, and he played, one of the few people played for Australia in both hockey and cricket. Very similar pathway through to Sydney.
It was only one choice to give you your cap then.
And he was a co-patron of St George, my club that I went to. So
made sense.
Lovely words that day. And then the moment itself was just magic. Spine tingling when you walk out of that members' change room through the race and onto the SCG. Didn't really go to plan, though, at the start. I mean, there would have probably been, Davey Warner, Phil Hughes, Steve Smith, Moses, those guys my age knew who I was. There would have been a large chunk of players there that would have been, like Simon Kadich, the captain, he would have been like, keen for you to play, mate. You've obviously earned it, but I'm keen to see what you got to offer. So he throws me the ball. And
new ball?
No, first change.
First change.
Yeah. So I get the ball. The slip's caught and all, standing back, and the ball bounces twice before the keeper. And I'm thinking to myself, A, can I crawl into a hole and go somewhere so I don't have to put up with this? But B, every single person on this field is thinking, oh, God, what have we signed up to here? Seriously, the guy bowling 125 max, bounced the ball twice. And then I go through the first spell in the first session, wicketless, and I'm sort of in there at lunch, and everyone's quite positive, banter, you'll be right, you just trust what you do. But internally, I'm thinking to myself, geez, I hope I snag one after lunch, otherwise this is going to be as quick out the door as it was in.
Turned out all right, though, didn't it?
It did. I still vividly remember that because of that lead-up, I still remember Ryan Broad, first wicket, nip back, LBW, and to turn around and see the finger in the air. That's one of those moments where you're like, they can never take that away from me, no matter how bad this goes from here.
It's one.
I've taken a first-class wicket at the SCG as a New South Wales cricketer in first-class cricket.
Yeah.
So special moment that, and then it was a bit of a fairy tale from there. I wish I knew that wasn't going to be the case moving forward as well. I was sort of riding a serious wave. So a few wickets that day. We lost the game, actually, which was the most disappointing moment of the week.
Yeah.
But yeah, magic. And I think had it not panned out that way in terms of wickets, I don't reckon I would have played the week after.
Okay.
So, in terms of sliding doors moments in cricket and sport, that was certainly one of them.
Well, producer Sam always well prepared. He's got all the figures here in front of me. You went on to take 8 for 92 in that innings, 10 for the match, and then 35 wickets in 5 matches that season.
Yes.
That's more than a few polls, mate.
Yeah. I mean, but the 8 for is what I'm referring to. Yeah. I thought, oh, geez, I didn't bowl that well in the first session. I've still come out with 8. Maybe I can do this regularly. But then you sort of think about the week after. There's people regularly scoring hundreds in those teams as they debut. And like Curtis Patterson came in, scored 100 on debut, not picked the next game.
Because of all the test players or
other players that were just either coming back from injury or international duty. So it was not a foregone conclusion that I would stay in the team.
Do you reckon, you mentioned there about imposter syndrome when you rocked up to the SCG sheds. Is that a big thing still in cricket? Or do you find that younger players now are a bit, more confident in themselves?
I think there's definitely a different confidence set around, maybe because of Big Bash.
Yeah.
There's a constant hype and immediacy of fan environment engagement around Big Bash, which is oftentimes players' first entry into professional cricket. The 17 to 19-year-old age bracket burst onto the scene, and they're typically playing BBL before they crack into first-class cricket. Whereas for me, it was the other way around. There was, 100 people in the G that were, your typical hard-nosed, rusted-on fans. But it was not a fan experience that I had the imposter syndrome around. It was purely a performance one, and a respect of teammates one.
Yeah.
I think it's very different now. Even coming out of under-19s cricket these days, I think there's a level of confidence and an almost expectation. Well, I've played for Australia at under-19s level at a World Cup. When am I playing? For the Blues. It's not an arrogance. It's just more of a, I'm on my way.
Well, yeah, you think of these guys who've come onto the scene in the last few years that fit what you're saying there, fit that mould. Cooper Connolly, Jake Fraser McGurk, Ollie Davies, play that you know pretty well from the Thunder already. But like they set almost a reputation for themselves, which kind of jumps over that old hard-nosed, go sit in the corner, mate, you bloody, you'll go out and figure out how hard it is against these bloody Queenslanders type thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to, now you rock up and there's 20,000 people at your first game.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, even the surroundings around the World Cup itself for these 19-year-olds. So Callum Vidler last year absolutely killed it for the Aussies of the World Cup. Comes back and debuts for Queensland and really did really well against New South Wales up at Allan Water Field. The World Cup has worldwide coverage now. Ian Bishop calling the final, socials moments. There's articles being written all the time. That's a different thing than 10, 15 years ago as well. So they are being surrounded by that much earlier.
Back to your early days. So Bradman Young Cricketer of the Year. You get picked to tour Zimbabwe with Australia A, and it's a pretty hot side just quietly. Now, Mitch Stark has been on this podcast a while ago now telling the story of how David Warner went 100 in a day, decided to celebrate his achievement even though he wasn't out. Basically decided not to sleep, rock up to the ground the next day, put on another 100 and do the same. And it was just like this, this greatness from Dave Warner. But you had Warner, Finch, Phil Hughes, Uzi, Mitch Marsh in this side, Peter Siddle, Ben Hilfenhaus, Mitch Stark. Nathan Lyon was there as well. Played only the one days, but it's a pretty good group of soon-to-be very recognisable names.
Yeah, Tim Payne was captain.
Tim Payne, captain.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like for guys who were almost on the precipice and, about to become very known?
Yeah, it was a really interesting one, mainly because I didn't realise the significance of it. I was just on that wave of I'd played 5 first-class games. I wasn't a contracted player even, so I didn't even know what a preseason looked like professionally, let alone a tour overseas. And there's other guys there like Glenn Maxwell, Callum Ferguson, several others. Like it's a laundry list of superstars that played for Australia and a couple of other hacks like me that got on that tour. But I think it was my first exposure to what was possible. And it started to teach me that there was actually no barrier to where you can get to. Like I was a keeper 2.5 years earlier. I was, on the way up, but I bowled 125 on average, swung the ball a little bit both ways, was batting okay at that point. That dropped off at the end of the career, but maybe we'll leave that. But really, I was immersed with these guys in a team environment, and we were dominating an opposition like Zimbabwe. We played the tri-series against South Africa. We were beating them too. There was really that first moment where I thought, you know what, like anything is actually possible.
Who out of that list of names has stuck most closely to the person you know? Like, I look at a guy like Mitch Marsh and I go, has that bloke changed from when he was 15 years old? I'm not sure he has. I'm not sure if the others have changed as much, but is there someone that jumps out at you and go, yeah, that him then, 13 years ago is exactly the person we see now in the public eye?
Yeah, I'd say Mitch Starc is very much the same. And you mentioned Mitch Marsh. Funnily enough, I don't know if Starkey's told you this story, but the Bison nickname started on that tour.
Was that Jason Gillespie?
Jason Gillespie.
Yeah.
We were sitting there. So he was coaching in Zimbabwe at the time, and he was there as an assistant coach and very old school in his methodology. No laptops or anything like that. He was by the eye, talking, very observant around techniques, how people would hold the bat, things like that. But he was also very observant of people's physique. And we were sitting around having a beer around a campfire, or it might have even been in the change rooms after a game, just observing the sheer size of that melon. And the thing that stuck out to him was how much he had spent time, in the outback of Zimbabwe and, going on safaris and the wild animals. And the bison was the one that stuck out as the most transferable in terms of the melon size. So, yeah, it was a fun trip. And I think, many things like that stick out. But, really, those guys, it was the start of a lot for so many of them.
And Mitch Marsh, still known as the Bison, did he take it well?
He did.
He did. Okay.
He's that guy.
Okay.
He's one of the greats in terms of character, having a joke, the vibe of the change room. So,
yeah.
But, the blokes who don't take it well, it's sticking.
Oh, you can't choose your own nickname. Well. You cannot choose your own nickname. Absolutely not. Your test debut. So, again, happening quickly for you, and you're continuing to take wickets at first-class level. So you get a start for your test debut. And first time playing with one Ricky Ponting, who's now your colleague at Channel 7, of course.
Yes.
Gaz says the first time he met Punter was in the lift. What about you?
I reckon it was...
And did you get g'day, mate?
Yeah, who are you? No, I think it was at the airport on the way, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that was really surreal. Like when we're talking about the A Tour and going into the New South Wales sheds, that was like a pinch me moment, bit of imposter syndrome. This was different gravy. Like I'm walking in Australian team kit into an airport with like press coverage going on and the likes of, Hads, Watto, Hussey, Ponting and the like, Michael Clark, getting on a plane to go and play for Australia. I'm like, what is going on here?
Did you do the time-honoured Australian cricket thing of in an airport, put your sunnies on and pop your collar?
No, I left that to a few others. There was an internal flight that we did go on over there where mistakenly I was offered a first-class seat and I was back in cattle class.
Yeah.
And I took it, not even thinking about anything else. And the absolute shit I copped from that moment on, oh, no worries, mate, you go. Senior figure, are you? Up in first class. So I was learning very quickly, stay under the radar, just do your thing and hopefully you'll get a game.
Whose seat was it? Or you get given it because
it was Troy Cooley's seat, actually. He offered it up.
He offered
to be
it
fair,
to you?
truck truck maybe shouldn't have had it in the first place.
But he offered it because of your height, surely.
And I think I was one of the first to walk past him as we were boarding the plane.
Yeah.
So I mistakenly took it.
Magnanimous of him to kind of give up I wouldn't be doing that.
Well, my argument was that guys like Uzi and Hughesy and several others that were giving me shit about it.
Don't
I mean,
need it.
come on, they don't need that.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Feet barely touch the floor. No, fair enough too. So yeah, story about Justin Langer slipping a note under your door.
Yeah, that was a pretty
before?
magical one, to be honest. And I mean, you mentioned colleagues with Punter, now with JL as well, with Seven. And when you become an Australian cricketer, and we're on tour, we played a practice match, and I took 5 wickets in the practice match, and sort of
This is in Sri Lanka.
in Sri Lanka,
Yep.
yeah. So I mean, different sort of humidity levels and challenge over there. And it's certainly for a young medium pacer, not the dream place to be talking about a debut. It's not like Lords or a juiced up Hobart. The abrasive wicket in Gaul. But 2 days prior, we found out at training, Gaz and I, that we were going to debut. His debut went a little differently to mine, and we all know where that's gone. But one of the most special things was you get told that you're going to get a baggy green the next day, and that moment is magic, and the anticipation is unlike many other things in life.
How do you get told? Is it a passing comment in the meal room, or is it like an official knock on the door, come and see the team manager? What is it?
Was
coach?
At the time, Greg Chappell, chairman of selectors, and Michael Clark, the captain, at the end of the training, match day -2.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at the venue, and they sort of came. It was the first time we had a selection for a test on the tour.
Mm-hmm.
So it was sort of a checkpoint in with every player intermittently throughout the training session. And Gaz and I both found out that day that we were going to play. And just to paint the picture, we're sitting in the change rooms at Gaul with the fort in the background on the other side of the ground. In the middle of the ground, when I talk about not the dream surface, there was probably 10 fully clothed females sitting on the pitch with a wire brush in one hand and scissors in the other, cutting individual strands of grass and then almost scarifying the wicket so that there was no live grass to be seen.
Right. Okay. So
I'm not joking. Yeah, we weren't going to get any little subtle seam movement on day one.
It sounds like me getting a haircut at the moment, actually. But yeah, anyway, carry on.
So, yeah, I mean, that was magic. But we go home that night and, Gaz and I, we were telling family, some that were there, but some back at home. And, my wife wasn't there at that point yet. And that was magic in itself. Then we came together in our hotel rooms that evening and we're talking about what had just happened. But both of us had received a little note at that moment under our hotel room doors. And it was a handwritten note from Justin Langer, who was batting coach at the time, speaking on the significance of being welcomed into the baggy green brotherhood.
Still got the letter?
I do. It still sits with my baggy green.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that's one of those things that is priceless. There's nothing that can replicate the feelings in those moments. But the handwritten touch was one of those things that it wasn't a memory.
Mm-hmm.
It's a physical living thing that someone had taken their time to sit down at their desk in their room while we were there and write out some really heartfelt things about what it meant to play for Australia for him, the culture of the group, and then also little things around the match and things like the team song. Yeah. That stuff is magic.
Hussey had it at that stage, didn't he?
He did, yes. And we won that test match. And, Gaz obviously takes 5 wickets. Wicket on his first ball to get Sangakkara. Storied day for him. And
decent wicket too.
Yeah.
To get someone like that.
Not bad, yeah.
You got Dilshan in the same test, so that's not too bad.
Second ball for me, and then Gaz rolls up and gets one first ball.
Oh, he won up, Joe. Yeah. How far removed from the two?
Oh, it was probably 2 hours.
2 hours removed, okay.
Yeah. But we win the test match, and then we're sitting around having a beer in the change room, and then we ended up going fully in whites in the team bus to the top of the fort to sing the song.
Really?
I'm sure Hads would remember that amongst, a gazillion test matches for him. That was for Gaz and I.
I haven't heard too many times where the team has actually moved from either the dressing room or the centre of the
unique,
field.
Special, vantage point of the ground.
Go up and do it there.
Yeah. So, and I mean, literally, it's on the other side of the ground.
Yeah.
It's adjacent. You look over the ground. We didn't drive 20 k's away.
Yeah.
But that was
You
one
got
of
in
those-
okay to the fort?
Yeah.
Talk your way in?
Yeah.
11
Yes.
blokes in baggy greens?
Yes,
Rocking
we
up.
did. I think they were quite happy to
What
have
a-
us. Yeah.
8 beers down by that stage, were you?
A couple at least. But
That
yeah,
humidity, mate.
yeah, I wasn't in great shape the next day. But we, that was one of those things. And Gaz has gone on to play a million tests too. And my career went very differently. And after Sri Lanka, it didn't go as I had hoped. But that to me, no matter who you were in that team, was a pretty special one. Winning test matches in the subcontinent was tough enough as it is and still is. But to do that, then to go on and win the series 1-0, and then to think about the other special things that came out of that, the Phil Hughes relevance and getting to play test matches with him and everything else that comes with being an Australian cricketer. Just a magic time in my life.
Just back to that team song with Mike Hussey in the middle, revving everyone up. Now, Mike Hussey is very enthusiastic about his cricket, it's fair to say. But when you put him in a moment like that, in the setting that you're in, a special occasion, what is it vivid in your mind about how he was leading that team song and jumping around and just like making sure that that team song might actually have been heard over in India?
Possibly.
About 1,000 k's away.
You know what I think is the greatest thing that he did, and I think Gaz does really well now as the song leader, is he intricately was aware of the significance to Gaz and I.
Yep.
So it was a team thing that was really special. And when you talk about the facials and the moment, it was up there. But that I'm sure there's a lot of team songs going around where you almost morph into a different human being. It was special, but it was also very significant and detailed for Gaz and I. And Gaz does that now. We've seen on the test docos and several other times where there's been clips behind the scenes. The little chat about the relevance of a debut, the moments in the match, and then the significance of it all before you get into it. Magic.
Poor old Alex Carey. He got handed the rights to deliver the song on the Ashes test, and they didn't win a bloody test for it.
I know.
The poor bloke.
He's going to have to wait his time.
Then Gaz is back again. And no, it's especially like trying to think of another country that does it. That story of the team song, yours is such a fantastic story about the setting of doing it, your first test, and so much meaning to it. And 13 years later, you still remember it so vividly. But the other teams do.
Not that I'm aware of.
No,
I'm
that's
sure
weird,
that,
isn't it?
I mean, it's prevalent in every sport, at
Yeah.
community level in particular. Domestic cricket, it happens everywhere, but
You got one at Thunder
I
yet?
don't know. I'm sure there is. I'm not a player, so I won't be in there.
Fair enough.
Hopefully we're winning a lot more than we did last year, though.
It's nothing that you can bring in as GM. It has to be player led. So
Yes.
absolutely. So your test career all up, how would you describe it?
I mean, from my point of view, I never anticipated ever getting there. So it was all upside for me. I wish the 5 test matches immediately after I was dropped. So I was on the South Africa tour.
Mm-hmm. Was that the one where Paddy made
Paddy
his debut?
debuted. Yeah. And, famous that day. But I was on that tour and missed out. But the teams that were being picked and the players I was missing out for was Pat Cummins, Peter Siddle and James Pattinson were the ones that I was sort of playing ahead of in Sri Lanka. They had started to play. And then when we got back to Australia after the South Africa tour, it was a few blokes named Pattinson, Stark, Hazelwood that have done okay. So, I look at it and think to myself, it was really special that I got there and there was no one injured at the time. It was a selection-based thing. But, really disappointed that I didn't get a crack to play at home. And particularly the wickets that we played, like the Vernon Philander series that happened, I think I could have offered something very similar to Vernon.
Were you in the squad then?
Yeah, that's that South Africa tour that Paddy debuted on.
That one. Yeah.
So the 5 tests immediately after Sri Lanka, those tests in South Africa, where you play at Joburg with the atmosphere and then you play at Cape Town where Vernon, we got bowled out for 50. Gaz top scored and
47 actually.
Yeah, well, okay. Thanks for reminding me. That
Just
day,
for all our South African listeners out there, we don't forget. It's all good.
yeah. Well, Paddy and I were in the gym that morning,
Yeah.
and we were doing a session, and we were in the gym thinking there was some sort of the wickets were that often that we thought it was that slow Mexican wave that goes around the ground.
Yeah.
And as it got around near us, we were just hearing it more loudly.
Yeah.
But we'd actually lost 7 wickets while we did a gym session. And Gary Kirsten, the coach of South Africa, I don't know if you've heard this story, but so he had a wedding that day, and he was leaving the ground. And when he left the ground, the score was something along the lines of 2 for 70 odd for South Africa. I mean, my facts might be slightly wrong here, but he left the ground, went to his wedding, came back with an hour to go in the last session, and South Africa were 2 for 70 odd. And he's thinking to himself, has it been raining all day? Like, I wasn't that far away at this wedding. He's come back, and we had been bowled out for 47.
And they got themselves back
and they were back in and batting in almost the identical position. So, yeah, I mean, the story there is very seam-friendly wickets in that context. And then we come back, we play Gabba, Wacker and Hobart in the series at home. So I think I just wish that I'd played well enough and been in good enough form to dictate an opportunity throughout that.
Yeah.
And it might have been slightly different, but honestly, those names are listed. They were coming, and they were coming fast.
So you don't look at it as if, like, how you said, that imposter syndrome at the start of your career, but you deservedly get the go to play Test cricket for Australia. It wasn't a case of, oh, one's a surprise or too many, but three's not enough. It's three. So
magic for me, mate.
Yeah.
I still consider myself a country kid that was just having a crack and loving playing sport. I played every single sport under the sun when I was a kid, and wheelchair basketball, boys netball, everything, you name it, I played it. And still to this day, I just live and breathe sport. So it's been a whirlwind the whole way. And even now, the roles that I sit in, I talk to my family at home and my wife and think, like, I get to sit in the best seat in the house talking about cricket in a commentary role. And now I'm in a general manager role at the Sydney Thunder talking Big Bash cricket for male and female. Like, it is magic how things have panned out.
And doing your NFL fantasy stuff on the side as well in your spare time.
Yes.
It's kind of blends in. It's like training for your GM role, which, again, we'll get to shortly. But with the way that you went about your bowling, do you look at it as if to say, I got the most out of the skill set that I had, or was there something else I could have done to maybe put 10 more clicks on my pace, or maybe done something differently in your career? Like, what I'm saying is, when you sit here right now with your career behind you, do you go, what if, or you go, got the most out of that?
No, absolutely the latter. And it's interesting the way you propose that, because I think I've learned a really good lesson that I wish I knew when I was playing for Australia, is to trust that that was good enough. Because there were people coming left, right and centre saying, how can we increase your run-up velocity? Craig McDermott was the bowling coach on that tour, and only through, fatigue and, wanting to get me to the best place I could be, talking around run-up velocity, or how about we just focus on the outie, because that's what Ryan Harris did really well, and he did so well in his career. And throughout there was pressures and even the external sort of selection or perception talk around not fast enough, shouldn't be swinging it both ways, like who else does that? I just wish I just trusted that was okay and good enough, because it certainly was good enough. Length control and the ability to move the ball and move it late is far more important than pace. It's just that there's a lot of guys around like Starkey and Cummo, Josh Hazlewood, that can do all of that.
It does feel like in modern cricket especially, and I don't know if this is a leaning towards T20 where death bowling, the variation of pace is good, but nothing beats a damn good Yorker at pace, that if you're 140, you're given a lot more liberties as opposed to the guy at 130. Is that fair?
Yeah, but I think if you ask, say, a Steve Smith or even ask Hads or Midge, like, pace isn't the issue. Pace just allows you more leeway if you can get the ball to move.
Yep.
So that's the difference for me is, say on a really flat day 3 test match wicket and there's nothing happening with the ball, I've got to be incredibly disciplined and find movement somehow or use strategy to succeed, whereas someone that bowls 140 plus has that margin of error where they're still quick enough that if something happens, they're going to blast out the stumps, or an error in judgment can happen far easier at that point. So that's kind of the difference, and it's, I think, just a common misconception that you can't succeed if you don't bowl that pace. You know, there's many examples of it.
And moving the ball both ways seems like a odd problem to find about someone. Like you look at James Anderson, he went okay at moving the ball around corners each way. I know that's an extreme example given his longevity and his excellence, but
yeah, I think it's more not necessarily that it was a huge detraction. It was more seen as by some, not, and this is a generalization. It's not everyone that thought this, but you know, a greedy mindset. 2 balls swinging in, 3 away, and then you know, 1 that you're trying to nip back off the seam inside, 1 over. You know, is that a sustainable path, or are you trying to accelerate the process to get a wicket, as opposed to just bowling your best ball, your stock ball, and trusting that for 6 balls and over? So anyway, we talk bowling semantics here for hours, but largely I look back and I'm bloody proud of it. And, you know, hopefully my kids, when they grow up, and, you know, Kim very much the same with her netball career, you know, we can talk about it fondly, but really it's about culture, team success, the friends you make, and the resilience you sort of learn throughout.
Tell us about that long career you had for New South Wales. I mean, you ended up with 410 first-class wickets, 344 in Shield for New South Wales. Only Jeff Lawson and the great Greg Mo Matthews in front of you. Not sure if Mo...
Three similar characters there.
Yeah, I just look at you and Greg Matthews and think, you're brothers from another mother, basically. You're just the same people.
Sounds like what he says.
No, but like getting that out of your career for New South Wales and playing in those games where, as you mentioned before, there's 100 people rocking up every time the ball hits the bat. The echo bounces around the SCG, but it must have been something immensely enjoyable that made you wanting more and more and more all the way through.
Well, you talk to anyone that's played that level for any length of time, and it doesn't mean any less than playing a test. It, like, in terms of the significance and the want to win the Sheffield Shield, it is as significant to players, and the success that comes, the lessons you learn, it prepares you for Test cricket. But that success is, you know, I'm as proud of that and the Shield successes as I am playing for Australia. Some other people may see that slightly differently, but the camaraderie and the year-round presence that you have, Starkey and the guys would have that with Australia because they are entrenched all format, but New South Wales, it's pre-season together. It's, you know, slugging it out, you know, in November at the Wacker when it's 40 degrees and, you're playing against Sean Marsh's 200 not out and it's flat. You know, like, that's where you figure out who you really are.
Yeah.
So doing that with your mates in a baggy blue was unreal.
Who's your most ferocious battle with playing for New South Wales? Your stock standard, we want to beat these guys. There's plenty of chat out in the middle. It's very enjoyable when you do beat them. It's heartbreaking when you do lose to them.
Victoria. And unfortunately it happened in a few too many Shield finals for my liking. I mean, that was the team across if you're talking across the entirety of my career, that was most prominent in big matches, that were the hardest to beat regularly, no matter the conditions, constantly coming up against bowling attacks like Siddle, Pattinson, Boland in Shield finals, John Holland. You know, that group didn't let up. So you had to be your best to beat them.
In front of the wicket and behind it as well, I'm led to believe.
Yes.
Plenty of advice?
Yes, plenty of advice. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't give some advice along my way as well. So
any famous examples?
No, not really. But I'm sure it was, you know, the hard done by, surely that was out, talking to the umpires, all sorts of things. So, but it was part of the contest. We all loved it. And Victoria have always been that team, and I'm sure Starkey would even say the same when we first started. That group of players down there with the likes of Dave Hussey, Cameron White, Andrew McDonald, they were so bloody good. So if we beat them, we knew we were on for a trophy that year.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a short little spell here with Trent Copeland. Back in a sec to talk about commentary and being a general manager. Well, Trent, you obviously understand the game pretty well. Let's get now to your commentary career. You're at Channel 7, and you're dressed very nicely, I must say. Good wardrobe department there at Channel 7. Thank you. Get some good deals with some good suit manufacturers. But no, I can't imagine, though, getting around in a suit at the Gabba in December is much fun. But, hey, that's your problem.
It is actually my problem. A lot of our problems. Yeah, last year, the West Indies test, that was ridiculous.
Man, that was the most humid test in the history of Australian cricket, that
goodness.
thing. You get to work with Ricky Ponting, you get to work with some great minds and great people as well. But you have kind of found a bit of a niche with the analysis area. Why that, and how much work goes into it?
I'll start with the why. That was cherry-picked and hand-picked by several people when they were starting. Chris Jones, executive producer, now head of sport at 7.
Got the promotion, Jonesy. Well done.
Yes, well done, Jonesy. Yes, and well deserved. I think he, along with several others, including Punter, at the start, were looking at a certain type of personnel to be a part of that team moving forward. So it wasn't just good commentator or good former player or whatever. There was a real type of person they were after, and that role, I vividly remember sitting down with many from Channel 7 about, there's a lot of people who tell us what's going on. There's a lot of people who tell us when things happen, but no one's telling us the why, and simply. So that's the role. It was going to be originally built around the big screen and touch screen, which it was, but socials updates, weather updates, pitch stuff on there, but it's very quickly morphed into, analysis of the game just through my brain and the tech that we've got at our disposal, and ideas come from everywhere, but I absolutely love it. I sit there watching the game with a quad split on the big screen of live play, Hawkeye, who are mic'd up and in my ear the whole time so we can be building things. Yeah. Do we use a pitch map? Do we use a beehive? We're wanting ball tracking left on, all that sort of stuff. And then replays from the truck and then stats and stuff as well. So, yeah, and then I'm also watching live play from behind the bowler's arm. So, yeah, it's cool. Like, what a job. Yeah. Seriously, get to sit there. The challenging thing is, when I'm commentating on, Midge or, Starkey and they don't play well, that's the tough bit. And I've had that as a current player and their teammate for a long time. Yeah. Figure out the ways, because you can't avoid it. You're a hack if you're not calling out and calling a spade, as you would well know, despite personal relationships. So you've got to figure out a way of addressing it, but talking from the vantage point of they know when they have a named up more than anyone. So thinking about it from their perspective and maybe even talking about what's a possible solution they would be looking at.
Just on punter as well, Ricky Ponting, is he along the lines of what Billy Birmingham portrayed Richie Benaud as in those 12th man classics, i.e. the captain of the commentary team? Like, he's running the meetings, he's like, logistical manager as well. He's setting a time to be in the foyer to get in the Uber.
Punter can't even do his own tyre.
So no.
Well, he absolutely is the captain, referred to as such. But the logistical things, I think he leaves to others. But the great thing is that we have him there that, he's the one, he comes in and will tell me, I see this with a sort of trigger of Cameron Green. Let's have a look at that. And if there's something there, I'll build it out, or Punter will bring it up on replay and talk about it in comms. He's just got that eye for detail that very few, if anyone else in the world has. Yeah. And we get to listen to it. And I'm, very fortunate.
Who books the restaurant for post-game dinners?
Combination of many of the boys, actually.
I think Brayshaw would chime in with his opinion.
Yes, Brayshaw's
James.
Yeah, he's a very, very much a leader in this space. Bluey's pretty prominent as well.
Okay, especially in South Australia. Bet you in Adelaide, you don't need to worry about a thing down there.
I need to get on the coattails of these blokes. They're certainly not me organising it, that's for sure.
No, Jay Brayshaw, I'm led to believe he's a big syrup barn hunter for the Triple M team as well. So yeah, they are known to.
I have witnessed that a few times.
Hey, you got to enjoy what you do, and they do. They absolutely do. Let's get your role in as a GM. So you got your. They say you got your GM hat on now, so to speak. What goes into building a list? I know you're early days with it, and you're building your first one. We could sit here and sit at the end of the summer, and you've got 2 trophies with the Thunder, or you've got two teams that missed the finals. I'm not sure, and we'll judge you on that.
Yeah.
But what's key for you in trying to build a list? Or two lists, actually.
Yeah, so women's and men's list management now falls under my purview. And I guess the big change from how Cricket New South Wales have gone about this in the past is it's now sole accountability for the budget, the inner workings of the club, community activity and everything, as well as list management and high performance stuff. So
you get a budget from Cricket Australia or Cricket New South Wales
Cricket New South Wales.
That's what you can spend. That's what you got. Don't come back and ask for more, please.
That's basically it.
Essentially, yeah.
But, largely, we're built around, it's chaos at the moment. Like we're in the middle of the off season and it is chaos. Doing venue hire agreements, working out when we're going to play certain matches, understanding the schedule. We're doing signing announcements, as we've just spoken about. And we've got the draft coming up in a week. So that's where all my energy's going mentally at the moment.
So that's men's and women's draft?
Yeah. On the 1st of September.
And how many spots are you looking to fill there? Do you know exactly now what you not only need to fill, but who you're going to fill it with?
Yes. And who I'm going to fill it with and who we're going to fill it with is only murky because of the other teams. So we're game planning around skill set with a desired list of, almost a depth chart of priority lists.
Yep.
So in the men's, we're at pick 3 in the first round. I need 3 names that everyone across the table is comfortable with, that if those first 2 names on our priority list get taken, I'm not caught short trying to hustle around to find a name. We're built out for 3 of those, and then for each one of those, we're building out a scenario in round 2, round 3, skill sets, matching it up with salary bands, and then we're also game planning what other teams are going to be doing in the draft as well.
This draft has been bagged a bit, but you, from living it, you're thinking, no, it's a great concept. This doesn't sound like work to you.
No, well,
to me, it doesn't sound like work for you. I should
say.
say.
American sports and the draft and asset management is stuff that I live and breathe and love.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's got a long way to go to get to its best self.
Yep.
But it's being shown on 7 this year, like free-to-air TV exposure straight after an AFL, sort of finals week. There'll be a show leading into it. I think that's important just for the awareness piece. And then it's about getting the best names here, which is a challenge too.
Absolutely a challenge. Do you see a way where bigger names naturally gravitate towards Australia, or because the market is so crowded at the moment, and let's face it, it's only going to get more crowded with Middle East competition on the end of the BBL. You've got the South African competition backed by Indian money right in the middle of it as well.
Yeah.
How do you see those challenges?
That's a tough one. I think the ILT20 might be the one that maybe would move out of our window eventually, hopefully. But as far as I'm concerned, last year was a significant one in the right direction, in the sense of the hype around the Big Bash and the performances, the match quality and the tournament itself. When the international players left and went to other tournaments, there was a feeling like maybe they made the wrong call. They should have stayed. The tournament was humming into the finals. We just need more of that. Okay. We need the sentiment around the world to be that this is, if not the best, that it's in the top 3 tournaments in the world, and the pay packet is enough to get them here.
Yeah. It's tough with I look at the Australian summer and get people look at one-day international cricket in Australia now on Australian soil and go, oh, wow, the crowds have really dropped off. But there's only so much the market and the consumer can actually invest in terms of getting to grounds. And the Big Bash has replaced that.
Yeah.
Essentially, as harsh as that sounds, that it's superseded what happens in Australian colours, even though this competition is trying to produce players good enough for international quality. It's kind of reverse engineering. But with the draft, back to that, can I just make a suggestion with the women's?
Okay.
Harmanpreet Kaur of India, she should be your number 1 priority, especially if you want to set up a bigger rivalry with the Sydney Sixers, because there's someone who usually sits in that chair over there that I would love to see her go head-to-head in a Sydney derby against twice a season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I might be having dinner with the Starks at the end of this week, so I might table that as a suggestion.
Maybe at the end of dinner, if you don't want it to be a frosty occasion. Something like that.
She gives me shit every day, so she can have some back.
I would love to see that. And the other bloke who usually sits in here, B. Haddon, Just keep an eye on your man, Ollie Davies, over there, because I reckon he'd love to see him in magenta or pink or whatever the bloody hell they call it over there. So,
Oh, Hads can piss off. Ollie Davies is signed for a couple of years, and I've got that amount of time to make sure he stays for much longer.
Some of those younger guys that you got in that squad, because there is going to be turnover, white ball cricket in Australia in the next 2 to 3 years. Is there real depth there? Not just in Lime Green and Thunder and Ollie and that, but around the place? What do you see?
I think so. There's certainly talent. Young bowlers like Tanvi Sang is another one that I think with subcontinental tours in the future, he's going to be right in the thick of it. He's so good. He's just got to get healthy and get playing cricket regularly. But outside of that, yeah, I think that's my job with the Thunder, is to build a talent pool that if we lose 2 players to injury or we lose 3 to international selection that we weren't planning on. Cameron Bancroft is with us, didn't play last year. If he was to open the batting for Australia, what does that mean? So we've got to be well planned, but the talent's definitely there.
It's all on you, GM.
Thanks.
Hey,
I'm up for it.
If you win, it's the coach and players. If you lose, it's all your fault, pal. You do know
I'm
that,
happy to
don't
cop
you?
it.
That's what happens in the States.
Yeah, that's right. That is
Never
right.
see the GM around a trophy presentation too prominently, but you always see him in the news when things go awry. But no, good luck with it. It sounds like a fascinating gig. And once again, I think I reiterate that everything you're doing in your professional life now doesn't seem like work, and that's a pretty good space to be in, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, wife and kids are happy. 3 and 2-year-old kids are vibrant. That's all I could ask for.
Trent Copeland, thanks for the chat.
Thanks, mate.
That was Willow Talk. Back next week. Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you are. And while you're at it, check out these videos up here. They're mostly good.